What's up, world? How you been? What you been up to? So last night I made a video about Stone Cold podcast featuring Vince McMahon as a special guest on the WWE Network. So as I made that video, I wasn't that clear and was just missing a lot of aspects of the podcast and what Stone Cold talked with Vince about a lot of other things and a lot of other crap. So I wasn't really clear, it was late at night, so now I'm going in depth. And since my phone cam, front cam only takes 10 minutes, this video is going to be 10 minutes or less. And I assure you I'll wrap things up quick as possible in a fashion format that you can understand clearly rather than the last video I made. This is more in depth. So maybe more of my videos gonna have two parts. One review, just a review to get out of, and one with the in-depth more review. So Stone Cold talked about how Cesaro was not getting pushed with Vince McMahon, and Vince was like, Cesaro doesn't have that it factor. So we were like, what? And Stone Cold mentioned that how he liked Cesaro when he left Zeb Coulter and had a feud with Jack Swagger, and that match was awesome. That feud, we liked Cesaro then, and he turned to be a client of Paul Heyman, and we hated that idea with Cesaro. And he said not to take anything out of, I love Paul Heyman, but I hated that. And once it's like Cesaro doesn't have the it factor, and just unlike other superstars this generation nowadays, they don't have the will to be main eventers. Not everyone wants to be main event. Not everyone can be main eventer. But back then, everybody wanted to have that spot. But now, not everyone. Now, a lot of people wanted that spot. Like some people in the roster, they're like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm gonna make money. I'm okay with what I do." And yeah, he talked about a lot of other stars. He talked about they talked about how Brock Lesnar's contract wasn't a long term, and Vince was like, Brock Lesnar contract is the way we made it, this is the way how it was originally made, and that's why he's not here. And but also because he's a special attraction, we want to keep him as away from the fans possible, so when they see him they get excited. It's a special attraction, and we're like, what? Either way, yeah, it's gonna be a special attraction when we see Brock Lesnar. And he talked about Sting, and he said the same thing about Sting, a special attraction. And Stone Cold was like, wasn't I a special attraction? But that was a different era. They also talked about how Stone Cold left the business for 8 months, and JR was the focal guy that talked with him and brought him back to Vince, and they agreed. And Vince, they also said that Vince fined Stone Cold 26,000, I believe, or 26 grand or something like that. But like Stone Cold was like, if I made a less, would you accept that? And like, I don't know. That was then, now it's now. I can't tell. And then they also talked about how CM Punk, the main focal point of the interview, CM Punk. So they said that CM Punk, is he gonna be back? What happened with him? Or did you hear the podcast? Vince said, I'm sorry, we didn't really want to send the legal documents on your wedding day. This is what just happened. This was what the situation was, and we weren't intended to do that. Screw you. And it's just in different form. I'm just saying in my own form. Well, and Vince was sincerely said an apology, and I'm like, I don't believe in it, because Vince in this whole podcast said things in his own way, businessman way. So he said it the way that he didn't want to hurt the other person, that going to hurt himself, don't want to say anything bad to anybody. But in this case, the most backlash will be in his own company. Okay, Vince talked about how he wants to work with CM Punk again, and he will. And I know CM Punk wants to come back. He would have one goal. If he wants to come back, he would have one goal, and which would be main event WrestleMania. He will leave. That's all you can get Punk back for, a main event WrestleMania and a Hall of Fame, and that's all. I don't think his career been that long to be a Hall of Fame, unless if you consider his old Ring of Honor and stuff, all his long-term career without WWE. Okay. And then we had he talked about himself, how he got into the wrestling business, how his father didn't want him to get in wrestling business. He talked about how his son is not in wrestling business. He said how Shane found different business in Japan and he's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. How he wanted, Shane used to work with WWE in the warehouse area, and how he got her daughter Stephanie into the business, her wife, everybody. It was a business. It was a family business. He also talked about how Macho Man Randy Savage, Stone Cold asked him about Macho Man Randy Savage. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And he said, of course he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's very soon. This year, not this year, next year, but not next year. Yeah, very, very, very soon. And he also talked about, they were talking about Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon matches and stuff like that. And they were talking about how Vince was commentating in the WrestleMania when Stone Cold was versing Bret Hart. When Stone Cold bled in a submission match, and that time the bleeding shouldn't happen, but it did happen, and that made the match. And Vince, they were talking a lot. So an hour was over, and Vince was like, "Damn it, this is my network. We gotta go 15 more minutes. We gotta go. It's my network." I'm like, holy shit, Vince, it's your network. If you wanna go, you will do it. So that comment now, like I'm thinking of it got me to it, that if you wanted to give the fan what they want, you could, but you don't want to. It's not because you can, because you don't want to. This is what, this podcast, as I said earlier, he was a businessman. He said things in a fashion, didn't want to hurt anybody, didn't want to get anybody upset. But he got the fans upset because he apologized to CM Punk. We can't say that. We can't say that they're not that mean. They're not gonna send him in his wedding day to screw him because he screwed them. But we can all say that. Come on, give it a rest. CM Punk was bitter and low, so all his comments weren't that we wanted. He said WWE was a stopping point, pit point. Do you think actually he believes that? No, WWE was bigger than that, but Punk was bitter. Either way, he will look back at his comments, it will be like, damn it, what did I say all this? Maybe I should in future, not now. He's hot right now. But either way, this is not a Punk podcast review. I have that up in the other video. You can check that out. But Vince McMahon and Stone Cold podcast after Monday Night Raw was a great addition. But too much. Like, if you have 3 hours wrestling and then 4 hours. I didn't even watch the Raw. The Raw was stupid. It was a filler. So yeah, the whole night, the podcast was the thing I wanted to watch at all. Anywho, so yeah, this is my review of the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. My in-depth review. Hope you guys got something out of it. And if you didn't get anything out of all 8 minutes you've been watching, the main point is that Vince McMahon didn't let anybody hurt. Didn't hurt anybody. Maybe he hurt Stone Cold by not giving the correct answer what he wanted, but still, he didn't hurt anybody. He said things that we would expect him to say in this form of fashion. He didn't bash on anything. So yeah, it was a good podcast. It was clean. It was good, and we will see JR in another podcast of Stone Cold in the future, as he mentioned in his podcast. So either way, peace out. Hope you enjoyed this review, and yeah, I'll make more in-depth reviews since you guys actually watching my videos. Peace.